All right, welcome back to ABA exam review and the continuation of our RBT practice question series where we're going through another set of questions together and breaking them down. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Please like and subscribe for all of our videos. Check out btexamreview.com for all of our study materials, including our combo pack. When you pass your exam, let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. Let's get going. A behavior technician observes that a client repeatedly flips the light switch on and off. To reduce this behavior, the technician gently holds the client's hand or covers the switch whenever the client attempts to engage in flipping it. Over time, the client flips the light switch less frequently. What procedure is the technician using by holding the client's hand or covering the switch? There are a couple of key ideas in this question that we want to think about. So first, as always, what does the question want to know? The question wants to know what is the procedure the technician is using by stopping the client from switching on and off the light. Because when we look at it, we know the problem is the light being flipped on and off. And to stop it, the technician does not allow the behavior to occur. If the client attempts to flip the light switch, they cover the switch or they hold the client's hand. So what the technician is doing is blocking that response from even occurring. Now, a couple of different ideas. One, we know the client starts engaging in the behavior less frequently. Behavior decreased, this has to be punishment or extinction. So we look at A, negative reinforcement. We shouldn't even consider this because the behavior didn't increase. It decreased, it can't be reinforcement. Look at B, response blocking. That's what we're looking at here. When we stop a response from occurring, we're blocking that response. And typically that's going to be a punishment procedure. Now, if we look at D, extinction, why isn't this extinction? For extinction to occur, the response has to take place and then reinforcement must be withheld. We are not allowing the response to even happen. The client is not flipping the light switch on and off because we're blocking them from actually engaging in the response. So this is actually a punishment procedure called response blocking. And then C, stimulus fading. We're not talking about prompt fading here or reinforcement fading. We're talking about the technician preventing the behavior from occurring or response blocking. So the procedure the technician is using when they hold the client's hand or covering the switch is response blocking. The entire morning, Delilah fights with her parents about getting dressed and going to school. Everything she is asked to do, she protests. Then, once Delilah gets to school and sees her teachers, she's a perfect angel. What would describe the effect the teacher has on Delilah's behavior? Extremely common occurrence where we have a child acting one way in one situation and completely different in another situation. In this case, Delilah protests and fights about getting dressed and going to school. The morning is apparently a huge struggle, but once Delilah goes to school and sees the teachers, she's all of a sudden a perfect angel. What is the effect the teacher has on Delilah's behavior? Well, A, stimulus control. In the presence of the teachers, Delilah's behavior has changed. So when our behavior changes in the presence of a certain stimulus, we call that stimulus control. The teacher has stimulus control over Delilah's behavior. She doesn't protest, she doesn't fight, she acts like a perfect angel. The parents also have stimulus control over Delilah's behavior because she acts a different way in the presence of them. So stimulus control can go both ways, and we've got to be aware of that. We're trying to establish stimulus control that we want to see. Especially as a technician, you want stimulus control over the behaviors you want to see and the ability to change the behaviors when you don't want to see those behaviors. The teacher is exhibiting stimulus control over Delilah's acting like a perfect angel behavior. Let's read all of our answer choices. B, differential reinforcement. The effect the teacher has is not differential reinforcement. Maybe the teacher used differential reinforcement, but that isn't what the question is asking or describing. C, stimulus discrimination. Stimulus discrimination is when we are able to choose a certain stimulus out of a group. So if I said pick B and you could select B out of the three here, That is discriminating between stimuli, not happening here. And then stimulus generalization is when a response occurs in the presence of multiple stimuli. Obviously, now what's happening here, we're describing behavior of Delilah in two different situations. Since her behavior changes in the presence of the teacher has stimulus control. A teacher is helping a student refine their public speaking skills. Early on, the teacher praises any attempt at speaking clearly. Over time, the teacher only praises the student if they project their voice at a certain volume and maintain eye contact. Eventually, the student speaking becomes consistently clear and appropriately loud. The student projecting their voice at different volumes is most similar to what? Kind of a longer question, maybe a more challenging question, but let's just go slow and attack the question and what it's asking about. Question wants to know about the student projecting their voice at different volumes. Immediately, we're thinking different types of responses, right? Because if I'm projecting a soft voice, let's say just little r as a soft voice, versus this loud voice, we have different responses occurring. And we know the teacher's helping with the public speaking skills. They're praising, speaking clearly, and then they praise the student if they project their voice. So we have a lot about the teacher, but we're not worried about the teacher. And we've got to remember, we've got to focus on what the question wants to know. So sure, a lot is happening with the teacher, but we're worried about the student projecting their voice at different volumes. So when we get down to the last sentence here, eventually the student speaking becomes consistently clear and appropriate loud. It now shows the student can project their voice at the right volume. If you can choose the right response or go between responses, what are we calling that? A, stimulus equivalence. Now, stimulus equivalence is a BCBA term that you don't necessarily need to know. Now, if you're fluent, you would recognize that was not part of your vocabulary and you wouldn't consider A. That's why fluency is so important. It prevents you from picking A, which might sound like a good answer, but you know it's not something you need to know. B, stimulus discrimination. Well, we just talked about that. If I've got a field of, let's say, four items, and I say pick three, and you can do that successfully, you've discriminated between the stimuli. Now, what's happening here? We're focused on the responses. So, response differentiation is like stimulus discrimination, except we're focused on different responses. If we have three different responses and you want to do response three, and you've differentiated. So, the student being able to go between different voice volumes is their ability to differentiate between responses. And then D, response shaping. The student isn't shaping their response. Likely the teacher is, but the student is who we're focused on. And the student going between different voice volumes is response differentiation. Aria, a receptionist, starts greeting customers with a simple hello. Over time, she spontaneously begins to use varied but functionally similar greetings such as hi there, welcome, or good day, even though no one explicitly trained her to use these alternatives. What is demonstrated by Aria's new responses? So looking at Aria's new responses. Well, we're starting with Aria, who sees a customer and then greets with hello. Over time, she starts to use hi there, welcome, and good day. So we've gone just from here to all these untrained responses. What do we call it when we start engaging in a bunch of different responses in the presence of a single stimulus? A, receptive behavior. Receptive behavior is just your ability to follow instructions. Again, it has nothing to do with this particular question. And if we're fluent, we're not even going to consider receptive behavior as an option. Be echoic behavior. As a technician, you're going to hear echo or echoic quite a bit. It's when the client or the learner copies what someone else says. Now, what's happening here? Aria is greeting the customers in different ways. See response generalization. Response generalization is exactly what's described. We've got a single stimulus evoking a multitude of responses. Stimulus generalization is the opposite. We've got a single response occurring in the presence of multiple stimuli. When we have a situation where new responses start emerging, especially untrained or untaught, responses, we're going to call that response generalization. Sophia runs an online store. She used to reward herself with a short break every time she processed 5 new orders. After a while, she decides to raise the requirement to 20 orders. Suddenly, Sophia starts to process fewer orders overall. Which term best describes the decline in performance after the schedule of reinforcement was changed? So let's think about this. We have a schedule of reinforcement that is changing and performance declines. So we know Sophia started with let's say, a 5 new orders, FR5, right? Every 5 orders, she would get a break. She then jumped to an FR20. So she thinned that schedule quite a bit. Instead of 5 responses, she now had to engage in 20. That's a big leap. And when we are changing reinforcement schedules, we've got to be aware of how quickly we're changing them, especially when we're thinning them out. So when we have a situation where we change and thin a reinforcement schedule, and then responses drop, what do we call that? A, avoidance. Sophia may be engaging in avoidance, but that is not the term that we're trying to describe. We're trying to describe that decline in performance after this change in the schedule. B, extinction burst. We're not discussing extinction here, right? Now, with an extinction burst, what happens? The responses initially go up. So yes, maybe her behavior is on extinction because it's taking a lot longer to get to reinforcement, but the decline does not represent an extinction burst. C, ratio strain. Yes, ratio strain is when we change that schedule of reinforcement, maybe too quickly, and response rate goes down. And then D, shaping. Well, she's not shaping. We're not looking at the shaping of her behavior in this particular question. We're looking at that decline in performance once that schedule of reinforcement was changed, which we would call ratio strain. Thanks for watching. Check out btexamreview.com for all of our study materials. When you pass your exam, let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard,